Provinces, like I mentioned, have been particularly hit hard by the coronavirus, are concerned about tightened lockdown regulations, particularly the Western Cape, Gauteng, and in fact the Eastern Cape.
Yeah, and one of the provinces, in fact, with the lowest infection rate is the Northwest. That's where there are only 58 cases reported so far. Let's zone in on that province now with Health MEC Madoda Sambata, who joins us to unpack the strategy. MEC, thanks very much for your time. By all accounts, you've screened 1.69, almost 1.7 million people. You've had 1,063 people referred for testing. Just give us some clarity on those numbers. How many people have actually been tested and what are the results so far?
If you look to our provincial outlook, the 58 Bujanala, which is the Platinum District, adjacent to both Pretoria and Johannesburg, and 17 are in Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, again another mining district adjacent to Gauteng and Free State. Our strategy is to ensure that each person who is confirmed, immediately the direct contact must be quarantined, and immediately the secondary contact must be analyzed. This is on the basis that we do not want the infection to grow through a direct contact, nor do we want to ensure that people who are tested positive are in actual fact themselves taking responsibility never to take it direct to other people, whether those they stay with or those that are in contact with. In the 58 cases that we have, 24 of them, it's recoveries. And if you look to recoveries, you don't need to lie to the people of the province and say it's not killing, because you have one death, but coronavirus still kills. All you need is that everyone else does not lower their guard. Of course, when the president says some areas would remain at 4, some at 5, on our side we have 2 districts that seems to be problematic, and it's dominantly the mining dominant district, but it's also dominantly the biggest district in terms of economic activity.
Yeah. So, MEC, we also heard, I remember the Northwest being one of the provinces suggesting that everyone who tests positive for COVID-19 will be quarantined at a state-provided facility. You've gone on to clarify that because of the reaction that it's received. Are you able to give us what the official standard operating procedure is at the moment?
The reason why we said that it's because of the previous behaviors of individuals who were tested and who knew their status, the extent to which they're moving around without protecting those that they get in contact with. So we're tired of that. But secondly, the official position now in the province is, in a standard operation procedure, is that any doctor who take tests of a patient, either in private facility or in government, and then discovers that the patient is positive, that person must request officially from the province to take the person to self-quarantine if he believes on self-quarantine. Immediately after that, the province will then send clinicians to the place where we are told the person is going to go for self-quarantine, to first check it whether self-quarantine is possible. Based on the assessment, we then say, yes, self-quarantine is possible, but you must sign that the person you are sending to self-quarantine is going to adhere to rules. Then we send people on the basis of assessment of suitability of self-quarantine of a place. In actual place, in fact, I can tell you, 80% of people we send to quarantine are sent in government-determined quarantine places because their places do not possess any possibility for self-quarantine.
I suppose the question then, MEC, is how do you ensure that that self-quarantine is taking place?
In the province, what we are doing, we are working very well with private sector and everybody. Now, if you go to the website of National Institute for Communicable Diseases, you will find the monitoring tool of people who are in quarantine and people who are in self-quarantine. What we do in self-quarantine is to first ensure that each member who is in the place, irrespective of their status, understands why the person who is positive should be on quarantine. But secondly, they must also themselves be on quarantine mode exactly in that house if quarantine is possible. Then we monitor them on a daily basis. That's why we are able to know that today you have moved out of your house at 12. It's because of our monitoring and evaluation process where we send nurses to go and check you, where we send doctors, and we ensure that contact tracing is done on a daily basis. We don't only check you today, we also check people who are your contacts as a basis of monitoring both your movement and the movement of your contacts and whether indeed they understand rules of quarantine.
Yeah. So, MEC, it kind of, I guess, makes sense to some respects with just 58 cases. I mean, it doesn't take much to imagine a scenario where you're able to do that.
24 active cases.
Right,
yeah.
Precisely. But we're seeing trends throughout the country where the number of cases are, in some instances, rapidly on the rise. How practical would that type of strategy be if the Northwest follows trajectories like Gauteng and the Western Cape, for instance, where cases are now in the thousands?
Remember, in the country, the status of readiness is that each province has been given a required number of beds. First, general beds. Second, the ICU beds. Thirdly, isolation wards. It is not counted on the basis of the number you have currently. It is counted on the basis of focus for the possibility of a surge. So our province with 58, it's not planning for 58, it is planning for in case we were to be engulfed by a surge of increase, whether our bed capacity for general beds is going to cope, whether our ICU beds is going to cope, whether our isolation ward is going to cope, because remember there's quarantine, then there's isolation. People who are sick but are not in the status of an ICU, they are kept in isolation wards in facilities. So the readiness is not on 58. The readiness is on the basis of possibility of a surge. But South Africans must do one thing. They must convince themselves that it's necessary to stay safe. Before you ask the government to provide facilities, let all of us play our part on ensuring that we will be safe and none of us is going to transmit if we get positive to any other person as a basis of prevention mechanism.
MEC, before we let you go, we know that the Northwest Province mining really is the bedrock of your economy. And if we think back to the time of the Spanish flu, you know, it was migrants from mining companies then that transported the flu back then. So what are the kinds of conversations you're now having with mining companies to ensure that that does not unfold here?
In the province, we're working very well first with the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, working very well with Minerals Council, but also working very well with individual mines. Like yesterday, I had taken a surprise visit to 3 mines, just checking whether the process of bringing back workers has an implementation of compliance of the workplace for COVID-19. All what we're doing with them, we're ensuring that each mine that brings workers back reports to the Department of Health in Northwest. That mine works with the department on the basis of training screener and contact testing, so that in the process of mine workers coming back, screening and testing in those mining houses is done at a higher scale. In actual fact, when I visited them yesterday, I found a high level of readiness, but all of them could report to me on the numbers of people that are back, numbers of people they have screened, numbers of suspects, including those that would have tested positive. Just yesterday, I told them, once you test anyone positive, please remember that person may not be necessarily coming from Northwest. He might have been in another province. Keep in touch with that province on contact tracing through the Department of Health, so that if someone has to come back to mine in Rustenburg, but that person is coming from KZN, that province must be informed that Sambata has tested in a mine in Rustenburg positive, but he had just arrived from original home in Eastern Cape. Therefore, activate contact tracing even in the province where he has left most of the people.
Right.
But generally, we're working on the basis that mining industry must not create a surge and increase in our cases,
Sure.
particularly on an element of exposure of having most of them having traveled throughout South Africa.
All right, MEC, we are out of time. Thanks very much indeed for your insights and for getting us into the picture as best as you can. That's the Northwest MEC, Madoda Sambata.